For the first time in a long, long time, I am wildly optimistic. We're going to go through my tweets and focus on education and the Trump administration. So the first tweet we're looking at is on Reddit. People are baffled as to why Trump is the president. This is what happens when you live in an echo chamber. And the people who create echo chambers, they either do this for the feeling that they want to be safe, they want to be around people who believe like they do. Among the consequence is that divorces them from reality. They get a very skewed picture of reality, and they also tend to other people and dislike people who don't hold the same beliefs as they do. So they create their own echo chambers, they live there, they think they're better people for living in those echo chambers, and they accrue virtue points. They accrue kind of virtue status by signaling and commenting on people's posts that they like, that then reinforces or feeds the echo chamber. And Reddit is a fetid cesspool of an echo chamber. I've mentioned before, don't rest on your laurels. This is the time to get to work. I gave a talk at the Danube Institute about this. If you think these people are gonna go away, you are sorely mistaken. They control the media, they control the academies. Now, we're doing a good job on the media in terms of citizen media, X, independent press, Substack, etc., taking the lead. I think that we have a lot of work to go. You will see these people fight with an incredibly ferocious tenacity, especially when I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes. Okay, so I've decided to throw my name in the hat for U.S. Secretary of Education. If there even should be a Department of Education, I think I take the same approaches as RFK does with the FDA, all these three letters. See what works, see what doesn't work, preserve what works, burn down the rest. There's very little I see that works with the Department of Education, and I think that they have a mandate which should not exist by and large. Nonetheless, like they do things that are somewhat important, like direct public policy, special education, they do some important work on, but preserve what little they do and destroy the rest. Okay, so I've said for I don't even know, over a decade now, that we need to, if the system cannot be reformed, we need to destroy the system. And I've said repeatedly, I want the whole system to be burned to the ground. And people have said, you don't actually mean that. Well, I put 3 clips in here. We found about 8 or 9 clips that I've said that over the years, and I give my reasoning for that. I said at the Unheard event, you're better off looking at a wall and doing nothing than learning a process that divorces you from reality and is divisive of your fellow human beings. So there's some interesting clips on that I suggest you check out, where I lay out the reasons for what I would do as the U.S. Secretary of Education and why that matters. And obviously, to be crystal clear yet again, education is important. We don't want to just burn the institutions down and do nothing. We have to offer meaningful plans, and President-elect Trump has done exactly that. He's far exceeded my expectation. He hasn't even gotten in office. He's far exceeded the expectation of what he's going to do with that, which is just extraordinary. This is a really interesting video Andy Ngo posted of a retired political science academic. You should watch this video, watch the smugness that she has, the confidence that she has.
And he's asked me, why I was getting the champagne. And I said, because I'm going to be toasting Madam President tonight. And he just looked at me with kind of like a smirk on his face. And I said, she's going to win this, right? And he says, oh, well, it's very, very close. And I said, no, it's not.
This is exactly what you have happen when you live in an echo chamber. You artificially inflate the confidence that you have in your beliefs. And you artificially inflate, in her case, her credentials. Like, she believes that her being credentialed in make-believe land makes those predictions more likely to come true. It's just simply not the case. I looked at her Twitter feed then. I think that she's deleted her account. The Guardian just responded, by the way, to a tweet, and they also said that they will not be on Twitter. The reason they can't be on Twitter is not merely ideological. It's because they can't defend their positions. It's because they don't value it. So again, we've created massive echo chambers, institutionalized echo chambers in our academies, in the media, legacy media, and this is a great example of that. So next order of business is this person. I've never heard of them. I don't think it's the primary reason we lost the election, but this woke stuff is very costly politically. Ironically, it is not inclusive. It is as confrontational, intolerant, and alienates much of the country. It's time to speak up and say we don't want to do this anymore. I was sickened when I read this tweet. These people are utter cowards. Who's even more cowards than these people are the people on the right, who, now that it's become easy and fashionable to criticize an insane derangement, mass derangement, they do so, but they didn't do so, it wasn't a costly signal. They didn't do so when there was a price to be paid. Now when it's comfortable. So now all of these people are coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, we need to rethink this, we need to talk. No, you are a coward. And that's the theme of all of this. Which leads me to my next point. If you feel empowered to speak out against the mass derangement that overtook society, here's a good way to begin. Quote, I was too afraid to speak out against the injustices that were occurring, the cancellations, the witch hunts, the relentless harassment. I am sorry. That statement should be uttered by every single person who now wants to criticize the divisive derangement syndrome that's taken over society now that it has become acceptable. But you didn't, did you? And you didn't because you were a coward. So you can either say, you know what, I'm sorry, I was a coward, I should have criticized it, I didn't. That's fine. Or you can give the what I just said. But don't just start criticizing it until you acknowledge the fact that you did not criticize it, because you were a coward. Make truth objective again. This is going to be one of my campaign promises and slogans if I become U.S. Secretary of Education. Make truth objective again. Very happy to know that David Joyce retweeted that. Okay, so the next order of business is that Ivy League students are offered crayons, Legos, cookies with milk to cope with Trump's election win. This has gone on long enough, and I will fix this. I'll tell you exactly how I will fix this. Merit, ending the DEI, ending all of it, and situating this in the context of genuine accomplishment. Aristotle writes about this. You gain courage when you do something on the battlefield. You don't just gain self-esteem. So we need to reinstitutionalize merit, grade inflation. We need to fix that. These problems will no longer be problems in a very short period of time. I realize that there are legal hurdles to this, but if I do become the U.S. Secretary of Education, my first order of business will be to slash my salary. I'm going to slash everybody's salaries. For one of the first order of businesses, make America literate again. A wonderful slogan and vital to the success of the Republic. So just to be clear, I've been screaming about this for years. Here's a little clip from a video when I was at an institution that is a cesspool that I will not name, and I say exactly what I want to do and exactly how I'm going to fight these people, and that's the attitude we need, and that's the attitude that nobody took. So where are all these people when this was occurring? All of this is achievable if we have resolve and if we're courageous. Unfortunately, we've become overtaken by cowards. But I suppose that's the case in any society. But we can fight back, and now that we have momentum, we must drive the ideology fully out of the institutions. Every conceivable institution, we must extirpate it. We must utterly rip it up from its soil and obliterate it. And to be clear, I'm not doing this or saying this out of some right-wing motivation. I'm doing this out of a respect for and a reverence even for liberal principles. We have to make the playing field level. We have to institutionalize and reinstitutionalize falsification across our systems. We have to institutionalize academic rigor, not when certain conclusions are forwarded. We have to institutionalize processes and methods of reasoning in which we'll be less wrong more often. This video is absolutely extraordinary. I couldn't possibly have said it better myself. This is unbelievable coming from the future president of the United States, the president-elect Donald Trump. This is exactly what needs to be done. And again, I don't think that this is even remotely partisan. Many people will think that this is particularly on the left when your side is out of power. So we're going to take a look at this video, and I'm going to comment on it as we go through.
Tuition costs at colleges and universities have been exploding, and I mean absolutely exploding, while academics have been obsessed with indoctrinating America's youth. The time has come to reclaim our once great education.
The professorate is obsessed with indoctrinating the youth. They don't care about truth, by and large. They care about forwarding certain narratives and punishing those who disagree. They've become massive ideological echo chambers where they have people who believe exactly what they believe with the same political leanings and orientation. He's absolutely correct so far. And it's coming from one end of the playing field.
The time has come to reclaim our once great educational institutions from the radical left, and we will do that. Our secret weapon will be the college accreditation system. It's called accreditation for a reason. The accreditors are supposed to ensure that schools are not ripping off students and taxpayers, but they have failed totally. When I return to the White House, I will fire the radical left accreditors.
I'm just overwhelmed by joy when I listen to that. That makes me so happy. He's absolutely correct. I've repeatedly called it a cartel. It is an accreditation cartel, and it is specifically set up to make it very difficult for new institutions to thrive. Nobody accredits the accreditors. There's no system in place of checks and balances for the accreditors. The whole thing is a big scam, one big scam. In Trump's first term, he did something about it. He broke up the cartel, but hopefully now he's going to demolish it.
We will then accept applications for new accreditors who will impose real standards on colleges once again and once and for all. These standards will include defending the American tradition and Western civilization, protecting free speech, eliminating wasteful administrative positions that drive up costs incredibly, removing all Marxist diversity, equity, and inclusion bureaucrats, offering options for accelerated and low-cost degrees, providing meaningful job placement and career services.
I could go on about each thing, but he's absolutely correct. The only people who would disagree with that are the far left identitarians, because they're going to lose power. And in their worldview, it's all about power. That's the kind of people who are going to disagree with this. But this is exactly what we need to restore balance in the system. And isn't it ironic, as many have said repeatedly, that it is a conservative, if one would even call Trump that, who will reinstate liberal principles in education. That's the hard pill to swallow for most people. But he is absolutely correct. This is 100% what we need to do to restore an actual system of education in the country. And if you have a problem with Marxism, saying that's too extreme, check out James Lindsay's book, The Marxification of Education.
And implementing college entrance and exit exams to prove that students are actually learning and getting their money's worth. Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination.
Okay, this is great. I personally don't think it goes far enough, but this is fantastic. Think about all the Asians who were discriminated against in applying to elite schools, Ivy League schools. You needed SAT scores, for example, significantly above non-Asians. I think all of those people we should pull from the endowment. Those institutions should be sued, and they should be given to the people who were denied admission to the universities. Look, if this were African Americans, nobody would have any second thoughts about it. They'd be like, well, of course. Well, why would it be any different if they're Asian Americans? They're discriminated against. They have been discriminated against on the basis of their race, and they're entitled to compensation. So I think we should take the endowments of the universities, particularly the elite universities, find all the people who applied, and we'll just divvy up their endowments. This is justice and this is fairness.
And schools that persist in explicit, unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment.
This is great. I can't say enough about it, only in that it doesn't go so far as to be retroactive. I think this should also be retroactive for all those people, particularly Asians, who were discriminated against. But yeah, there's nothing to disagree with here unless you think we should discriminate against people on the basis of their race. And if you disagree with Trump, then you should start any response to me by saying, I believe that we should discriminate against people on the basis of their race, and then go from there. That would be the response in which someone would say, oh, well, then at least that person's being honest. Most people are not honest when they respond to this.
A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies.
Everyone wants to claim they're a victim. In this case, we have actual victims. There are actual victims, people who have been denied entrance to elite universities solely because they were Asian. And all of them, every single person, should receive remuneration from the endowments of the institutions. I would literally dismantle the entire endowment and give it away.
Policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America. Thank you.
Genius. I mean, if someone asked me to draft a talk, that would be the talk that I would have drafted. Absolutely, we need this, long overdue, and it would have been nothing more. You know, Kamala Harris has her pronouns in her bio. Needless to say, this is the opposite of that. So 75% of Americans cannot read at a 6th grade level. One of my first acts as Secretary of Education would be to gut the Office of English Language Acquisition, fire them en masse. And like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk want to do, there will be mass firings. And there are many offices that we can get rid of, but that's among the first to go. This video is absolutely extraordinary. This is an utterly mind-blowing and game-changing video.
Under the plan I'm announcing today, we will take the billions and billions of dollars that we will collect by taxing, fining, and suing excessively large private university endowments, and we will then use that money to endow a new institution called the American Academy. Its mission will be to make a truly world-class education available to every American, free of charge, and do it without adding a single dime to the federal debt.
Okay, that is extraordinary. That claim will have to be fact-checked. I don't know if that's true, to not add a single penny to the federal debt, but as you know, I'm deeply concerned about the federal debt. But I think we can solve that by taxing the endowments of large universities and institutions. And I think that they should be taxed at the highest possible margin. The other thing that's interesting to note about this is that he wants to make this educational opportunity free for people. There's no question about it that people whose parents do not have money, they come from bad zip codes, they do not have the same educational opportunities as, for example, I came from the middle class. So we need to give every American a public education of the first rate, a la John Rawls. I think this moves us in that direction. And we can do so by pulling from the endowments of corrupt universities that have been fleecing the people for decades.
This institution will gather an entire universe of the highest quality educational content covering the full spectrum of human knowledge and skills, and make that material available to every American citizen online for free. Whether you want lectures or ancient histories or an introduction to financial accounting or training in a skilled trade, the goal will be to deliver it and get it done properly. Using study groups, mentors, industry partnerships, and the latest breakthrough in computing, this will be a truly top-tier education option for the people.
This is a fantastic idea. Again, it's free, it's for the people. I only have 2 suggested criticisms of this. One is part of the university experience is being with your peers in a place. I don't know how that can be replicated. I think that's important. My second criticism of that is there has to be some kind of I don't know if at this point AI cannot do it, but maybe soon it can. There has to be some kind of a dialectic in pushing back on things. So I don't know, I'd have to learn more about it. But this is a fantastic idea, particularly if it can give middle income and lower middle income people, and even people who have no hope or no opportunity at all, who federal subsidies usually cover a portion of their education, but going in debt for large sums as a young person is just terrible. So I think this is a fantastic idea.
It will be strictly non-political, and there will be no wokeness or jihadism allowed.
I love the bluntness of this man. No wokeness or jihadism. It has to be non-political. As Pano Kanoulis from the University of Austin has repeatedly said, the solution to left-wing ideological takeover of institutions is not a right-wing institution. We have to have bodies of knowledge that are not ideologically corrupt. We have to have bodies of knowledge that are, again, based upon this idea of we try to falsify. We have to have open inquiry for what we're doing. We don't have that now. The systems are corrupt. And let me be very plain and speak bluntly and in clear language. The people who have done this to the United States of America, they are the enemies of America. They're the enemies of freedom. They're the enemies of decency. They have done this not only to themselves, they are a stain on the United States of America. And I think this plan is going to go a long way into ousting the ideologues who have overtaken and ransacked our academies.
Most importantly, the American Academy will compete directly with the existing and very costly four-year university system by granting students degree credentials that the U.S. government and all federal contractors will henceforth recognize.
That is really important, credentials that are recognized. I would also say that we need a cultural movement along with this to discredit and delegitimize degrees from institutions, particularly Ivy League institutions like Yale or Harvard. Remember, to be clear, in case someone is thinking that I am on my own personal jihad, you would actually be correct. But to be clear, let's take a look at just one simple example. If you're watching this and you're like, Boggosian, he's a crazy man, the institutions aren't corrupt, you're wrong. I'll tell you why. I'll give one simple example, plagiarism. Claudine Gay, plagiarist, not fired. I just published a piece, or piece is coming out, Lawrence Krauss's new book, about plagiarism, documenting the incidents of where it's occurred. Institutions have not fired plagiarists. Not only have they not fired them, they know that they're plagiarists, they're harboring plagiarists, they're hiding plagiarists, they're hiding the dissertations of people they suspect have plagiarized so they cannot be caught. It's a disgrace. These people are a disgrace. They're ideologues. That's what they are, and we must dismantle the system.
The Academy will award the full and complete equivalent of a bachelor's degree. In addition, to help the 40 million Americans who have some college education but no degree, the American Academy will grant credit for past coursework at legacy institutions and give you the chance to complete.
This is a great idea because there's an immediacy to this. So if you have been in a traditional four-year institution, let's say it takes him 2 years to get this up and running, I don't know how long it's going to take, I just threw that out. Then if you're a sophomore, you can get credit for what you've done at, to say, UW. You can get credit for that as you go on to the new institution that the president-elect. This is just a fantastic idea, and I just think it's so important to take money out of those institutions right now. Because remember, this is a business, and this is what they're doing. They're treating their students like customers, and they're getting a disproportionate say. For example, it manifests in a wide variety of areas like grade inflation.
And much more quickly than is now possible or available. This will be a revolution in higher education and will provide life-changing opportunities for tens of millions of our citizens. Enjoy it, learn from it, and thank you.
I cannot just say what a wonderful idea this is. He mentioned briefly vocational education. I have always thought that vocational education is extremely important. In fact, the only piece that James Lindsay and I never managed to get published is we wrote a piece advocating for vocational education. So I hope that the president-elect also takes that very, very seriously, because that's something we desperately need in our country. Next item. An urgent order of business is to go after the peer-reviewed system. Is an interminable cesspool of corruption. We are forming public policies based upon quote-unquote data from ideologically captured journals invented by ideologues. We must immediately end the system of corruption. I have spoken about this problem, I don't even, thousands of hours, countless hours all over the world. Nobody listens. It's not enough to fix the colleges. We have to fix the peer review process. It is irretrievably, irredeemably broken. I've talked about this before. I published a piece in the Wall Street Journal about this, idea laundering. Ideologues have an idea, they're in the academy, they launder the idea through a journal, which gives it a kind of legitimacy. Out the other side comes quote unquote knowledge. They use that to inform public policies. This is a cesspool of corruption. The journals only forward certain narratives by ideologues who control the journals. It's even to the extent of they're now not blind reviewing certain journals, and they're looking at the identity markers of people who contribute to the journals. There's also something called citation justice, in which you forward the justice of people who have certain identity markers, like they had a history of slavery or what have you, and you don't forward other, if you're white, cis, male, hetero. I don't even like the word cis anymore. So we have to fix the peer-reviewed process. We have to fix the system. This is going to be a massive undertaking. Part of the problem is that the library systems buy the peer-reviewed journals. But if we can manage to defund the endowments, then the libraries won't have any money to buy the peer-reviewed journals. So the contamination and the poison won't seep down. But the problem is that we actually need a strong peer-reviewed system. So we need to rethink how we do this, and we need to rethink the credentialing mechanism for faculty, what goes in the promotion and tenure basket. I also think we should reform tenure while we're at it. I think the whole thing should be reformed. And at no other time have we learned why this is so important than in the last 10 years. If you want to understand more about this, I urge that you read James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose, and my piece, Academic Grievance Studies and the Corruption of Scholarship. We detail this at length. And of course, watch Mike Naina's documentary, The Reformers. There is only one way the existing academies will survive, with the exception of the Ivies. I think they'll be around for a while. And none of them is ready or capable of making the needed changes. If you were advising them with the goal of their having a future, what would your advice be? I'm fairly confident I know the answer to this question. I'm extremely confident I know the answer to this question. It has two components. I'm not going to say it here, but I'll say it at a later point. I'm just curious as to what people think. So if you have a comment, write it down. I am fairly confident, though, that I know the only two ways to save the existing academies. And I'm also certain that even though I'm going to tell you what that is, they won't enact them because it's not possible for them. They're broken. They're broken, and they're in ideological echo chambers. We are about to become unburdened by what has been. Harris and her cronies are about to be thrown out. The issue of education and what we should do and spending on education should never be a political issue. Unfortunately, it is an overt and conspicuous political issue. What we should be doing is looking at the best available evidence for pedagogies, for what works, how to help people in low incomes have an opportunity, the same educational opportunities that people in higher income brackets, or the children of people in higher income brackets or zip codes have. We've failed miserably. Not only have we failed in that, but Trump is right. Maniacs and lunatics have taken over our institutions. I've been screaming about this for years. Now we finally have an opportunity to do something about it. We must make sure that this succeeds. And I would argue it's not just the academies that are at stake, or the education for people. It's the country itself is at stake. Fixing the educational system is the cornerstone of fixing the country. And we need one more component which hasn't been discussed, which I will discuss in another video. We have to reform colleges of education and teacher training programs. The president has not talked about that, the president-elect, and I wish he would. But that will be the subject for another reaction video. If you want to keep watching, here are a few other reaction videos.